Hi friends, Aitherea here, and today I want to talk about the new Variant Advanced Dungeon Boss Rush, whatever you want to call it, and why I think we need to have more content like this in Final Fantasy XIV. Spoiler alert, the reason is because I see it as midcore, so in order to talk about how good Variant Advanced is, I kind of need to talk about how bad the state of midcore is in 14, and what I mean by that is that we basically just don't have a lot of midcore. I think everyone kind of defines words like casual, midcore, and savage a little bit differently. Like, for some reason, I kind of feel like we all have our personal definitions and takes on what this is, so let me just give you the rundown on what I see as midcore. So aside from Variant Advanced, I think a really good example of midcore in this game would be something like Pilgrim's Traverse. And the reason I feel that way is because I think it's very engaging content that in some ways keeps you on your toes, but I also wouldn't call it hard, right? Like something like Savage or Extreme, I would call those hard. I think they take a certain skill level, a certain skill floor, and the type of skill that you need to have in something like Pilgrim's Traverse, Deep Dungeons, is a lot different from what you need in Savage, because in Savage, you have to, or Savage or even Extreme, but mostly Savage, you have to be able to like do your rotation properly, your DPS rotation, and know like when to use tinctures, and know how to slide cast, and know how to like use your burst properly on cooldown with everybody else's buffs, like fit all that in the buff window, all of that stuff. There's a lot of little things, and then you also have to be doing the mechanics perfectly correctly, because if you're even a toe out of line, you kill all your friends. You know what I mean? Like it's a certain skill floor, and it's a lot more difficult, right? Where something like Pilgrim's Traverse, I think in any content in the game, obviously being good at your job is going to help you, but it's such a different kind of skill expression, because a lot of times at the later floors in Pilgrim's Traverse, you're gonna want to kind of pull things one by one. So, you know, your rotation can still be helpful there, but especially if you're going with more people, sometimes before you can even get through your full rotation, your full burst, or whatever it may be, you've already killed the mob. But you still might choose to be pulling one by one at the later floors, because mobs can one-shot you at those floors. Now, if you're careful, you know, and you pay attention, it's pretty easy to not get hit by them, right? But that's my point, is like you still do have to pay attention. It is still engaging, so it's more challenging and engaging and brain on than something that I would call casual, which for me, roulettes, your daily roulettes that you do, absolutely casual, right? I can turn my brain off for like all of those. I feel like I could play them with my eyes closed. They're not that engaging. Frankly, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think they're boring. I don't like roulettes. I think they're really freaking boring. So that's kind of where I'm at with like, what do I see as midcore? It's something where it's engaging, your brain is on, but it's not necessarily super difficult or super hard. Just more, like I said, you're engaged and you have to pay some amount of attention, but you're not like clenching your butt cheeks. You know what I mean? You're not clenching your ass cheeks the whole way through or anything like that. It's not like a super stressful encounter. And so for Variant Advanced, I think it does fit into midcore, definitely at the higher end of midcore, because at least for me, I find that with the 3 bosses that we have in Variant Advanced, all of them, except for the mermaid, each have like one mechanic. I mean, the mermaid a little bit with like the in-out mechanic mixed with the familiar call, but I would say all of them have one mechanic per fight that make me feel like it's a little bit harder, which it feels more like a mechanic that I would see in Extreme or even Savage, but just one, but it's still totally doable. And the thing about it is, even if like you die, you can kind of get carried by other people. And I think that's another kind of important thing to note about something like midcore, is like a carry should be possible in midcore. And I think for the most part it is. There's only a few moments in each of the Variant Advanced fights where there's like a body check mechanic, and even then, some of them are kind of almost like, I don't know if cheese is the right word, but you can still get through it even if somebody is dead. It just kind of depends on which fight. And it's one of those things where like, even if somebody messes up at some point during that mechanic, you might still be able to get through it. Like, it's not like they're not difficult body checks. There's not a lot of body checks. Like I said, there's at most one. So like, for example, in the Pari fight, she'll do a half room cleave and then she'll have tethers. And if you're doing it with 2 people, I feel like it might be easier with 3 or 4 to like not worry about a wipe. But regardless, you have to pass the tethers between your group. You cannot take a tether twice in a row because you get like a little debuff and it has a timer on it. So you can only take a tether after that timer is over. So if you do it with 2 people, then you're just switching off the tether between each other, where if you're doing it with 4 people, then you might go 1 2 3 4 or whatnot. But especially with 2 people, if someone takes the tether and then they die and there's still like 2 more rounds of tether to go, then the other person might actually die. I think that's like the only hard body check in Variant Advanced, like completely. And that mechanic isn't super duper difficult. That is, in my opinion, the hardest mechanic in that fight, but it's also not that hard. So you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, like, yes, it's technically probably a body check, but the mechanic difficulty in and of itself isn't so difficult that it's like not doable. It's not like Savage level where I feel like, oh my god, you need to like practice it so many times to get it. Like, it'll take you a few times and you'll be good, right? Like, it's still kind of easier there. And then I would say the body check in the swordswoman fight is there's this one mechanic where you will get a knockback and you're supposed to take it. It's like either an in or out first. It can be either one. So it can be out to in to out, and then it'll have a knockback paired with it. And you're supposed to take it together with your party, because if you don't, you get knocked back into the wall. Well, if your party is dead and you're the only one alive, you can just use knockback prevention, like Surecast, and you will get a vuln stack, and you'll take like damage, but you won't die, and you won't get hit in the wall. So you can kind of like cheese that one. You don't really need... It's not a hard body check because you can get around it. But if you were to get like 2 of those in a row and you already used your Surecast or your arm's length, and then like your party members are dead, then you're going to get pushed into the wall and die. But that's just, it's rare. I feel like that doesn't happen that often. You know what I mean? I feel like, so I would definitely consider this midcore, still definitely the upper end of midcore, because there are some kind of more difficult, challenging mechanics, but still midcore. So obviously I like that it is midcore, and I want to see more stuff like Variant Advanced because it's midcore, right? Like I was saying, we don't really have a lot of midcore in this game. If I had to tell you what midcore do I think we have in this game, I think we have Variant Advanced. I think we have deep dungeons. To some degree, the exploration zones, like the Boston Southern Front, is kind of midcore. I don't really know if... I mean, maybe a little bit of Occult Crescent, because sometimes the critical engagements can feel a little midcore, because they're kind of like extreme trial fights on training wheels a little bit. So we can maybe include those as well. I feel like Alliance raids, when they first drop, sometimes feel a little bit midcore because they're a lot more engaging and have more interesting mechanics. Like the mechanical difficulty is definitely higher than your average kind of like normal mode roulette and stuff. But the problem with Alliance raids in particular is that, as patches go by, as time goes by, we gear up and they just kind of get easy. Like they kind of do turn into brain off eventually for me. So they're kind of like towing the line of like casual and midcore, in my opinion. And it also does depend on the specific fight, because some of them are easier, some of them are harder, that sort of deal. But aside from just wanting this sort of level of difficulty, I think there are some other really good aspects to Variant Advanced that we should consider. And that would be kind of the flexibility of it. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of your party. Not only is it 2 to 4 players, so you don't have to have a full party. You don't have to worry about getting a lot of people to go with you, because I think for a lot of people that keeps them away from certain kind of content. Some people might want to approach Savage raiding or even Extreme Trials, but feel like, oh, like there's a lot of people that are like really kind of like shy or timid, and they want to go with friends. They want to go with people they know, their friends, their FC members, whatnot, because they're kind of afraid of Party Finder, which you shouldn't be afraid of Party Finder, but I understand the feeling because I was that way in the past, for sure. And then even sometimes today, I'll be like, should I do Variant Advanced in Party Finder? Nah, I'd rather go ask my friends who I'm comfortable with, Because I think there's some amount of pressure that people feel like, oh my god, I have to be good, I have to be perfect because I'm like with strangers, and like whatever it may be, there is this sort of anxiety about going with Party Finder that I think holds a lot of people back. So if you need 8 people for something, Yes, it's possible to like find it in an FC or for an FC to like schedule a run, but it's a lot more difficult, I would say. Where something like Variant Advanced, you only need one other person. You only need one other person. So if you are that kind of person that wants to try like content that's a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult, but you are nervous or anxious to do it with strangers, all you need is one friend and you can jump in to Variant Advanced. And on top of that, what else is really cool? You guys can play whatever role you want. You're not restricted. So if you only have one friend that you trust to go with, and you guys play the same exact role, it doesn't matter. You can go in as 2 healers, you can go in as 4 healers, you can go in as 4 DPS, you can go in as all tanks, like you can go in as a perfect light party, you can go in as whatever you want, because you have the variant actions, which the variant actions are another thing that I kind of think keeps this in that mid-core difficulty, because you can get a tank, I was going to call it a tank buster, you can get like a big tank cooldown, a mitigation, you can get DPS skills, you can get a heal. So to me, that also helps keep the difficulty at mid-core, because you've got these little extra skills kind of helping you out. But yes, we're talking about the flexibility right now, and I think that flexibility of not only not having to have a full party and not having to have 8, but it's 4 tops, is really cool. And then the flexibility of being able to choose any role that you want is also really, really cool, because I just feel like it opens the doors for more people to be able to enjoy this in any way that they want, because those restrictions aren't there. Now, talking about how this translates to the rest of the game and saying that I want to see more of it, I do think it would be cool to see more content like this, because I think Pilgrim's Traverse is similar in that, again, your role doesn't matter. You can go in with all healers if you want. Obviously, there's some strategies you might choose, like, oh, this role or this job is particularly good for this kind of content. Like, yes, that exists. You can optimize in that way, but you don't have to, right? And then same with like funny how all of the stuff that I'm listing as midcore is the kind of thing that is flexible like this, because Baja was really flexible. Occult Crescent is flexible. I can't speak on Fork Tower, but I wouldn't consider Fork Tower midcore. Would I? No, that's hard. So yes, it's interesting how so far a lot of the midcore content that we have is flexible in that way. In my opinion, I don't know that I care as much about like light party flexibility. Like, it is very cool, and I'm definitely not against seeing more of it, but I just want to see specifically more of like this kind of difficulty and only having to take like 2 to 4 players. Like, I definitely want to see more midcore with smaller group sizes, and to some degree even hardcore with smaller group sizes, which is what Criterion is. But that's not what this video is about. So, and I think another thing I want to touch on with Variant that kind of falls under that flexibility umbrella is the fact that you don't have to kill all of the bosses. Obviously, if you do, you get more rewards, you get better rewards, but you can choose not to, and you still get some rewards. So it's not like an all or nothing situation where you go in and, maybe within the lockout, you only manage to kill 2 and it's like, oh no, we didn't kill them all, we miss out. You get nothing for your time, right? That would suck. So I think it's also very good design for them to be like, after every single boss, you get these rewards, right? And so that way, even if you don't manage to kill them all, you're still getting something for your time, which I think feels really good. And that way you also just have the choice. Maybe you don't feel like doing the whole thing in the moment, you just like a particular boss and you want to continue doing that boss. Maybe you do find some of the bosses a little bit too hard, so you stick with the one that you're best at and you farm that one. Obviously, like I said, it is better to do all 3 of them if you can, because you'll get more rewards, but you can do whatever you want, and I think that's the cool part, right? Like, the freedom of it is really, really cool. So I definitely think that something like Variant Advanced could be a blueprint for further types of content, because I really do want to see more midcore in the game, and I want to see more kind of small group content. Not as much 8, but also, like, obviously the small group content that we have that isn't hard is kind of like your roulettes, which I already said I find boring. So something like this, where it's not boring, it is engaging, but it is small group, and you have so much freedom between like how many people you're going to take and what roles you can play. I mean, like, it's just so good. It's just so good, and we need more of it. So yeah, that is kind of the crux of my argument here. I'm basically just trying to say that I think Variant Advanced is really cool mid-core content, and I really like the way that it was designed, and I'd like to see more of it. But before I shut up completely, I really want to talk about healing in Variant Advanced, because I feel like I get to have an experience in Variant Advanced that I don't really get to have anywhere else in the game, and it was actually really cool. So in casual content, I talked about how I don't really feel like I get to heal much at all. I feel like I'm not even necessary. In Savage, it's a little bit of a different story. I think it's a lot of fun if I get to play a burst healer like White Mage, but if I am playing Sage like I am now, it's still fun, don't get me wrong, but my personal power fantasy is not one of DPS or shielding, it is one of fat, thick burst heals, right? Those reactionary, big, fat heals. It's White Mage. There's a reason that White Mage is my favorite job to play in the game. And so, but the problem, I guess, is what happens for me in something like Savage is that, everything is kind of really planned out, right? I mean, White Mage is a pure healer, so it does have more tools if crap hits the fan, but especially playing Sage, I feel very weak because my tools for recovery are just not that great. Because everything's planned out, right? Like I have a mitigation rotation that I've kind of decided on with the team and with my co-healer kind of feeling each other out and, when are they going to use this skill? When are they going to use that skill kind of thing? So I have like a mitigation rotation, and what happens is if something goes wrong, either those skills are on cooldown, so I no longer have them available to me, so I can't save the group because I don't have my good cooldowns, or I have to use them to save the group, and then later we struggle and possibly wipe to a later mechanic because I don't have my cooldowns. I don't have the mitigation that I was offering normally that's supposed to be my mitigation rotation. So Savage can be really strict in that way, right? So I'm saying with casual, not enough healing, very boring. With Savage, it's a little bit more difficult because everything is so planned out that I doesn't feel like I have as much like freedom. And so the interesting kind of experience I had in Variant Advanced, the first time I did it and cleared all of the bosses, I went with my friend. It was just me and him, and he didn't even take a healing skill. In the footage I have, he did, but he didn't even take a healing skill. So I was completely responsible for all of the healing, and I had to do a lot of healing. I had to use GCDs, and okay, I don't mean GCDs like a flat disrupture. I mean like Medica 3 and Cure 3 and Regen. Like I had to use, and even Cure 2 at some points, like I have to use these skills because not only were we not perfect, right? We made some mistakes and needed extra healing for messing up, but also the tank is just like sitting there hitting you with autos the whole time. So if my friend is the one getting hit with autos, then I need to keep placing, it's easiest for me to just place like a regen and a Medica 3 personally is something that I think is a really good thing to use because I only have so many tetragrammatons and I only have so many lilies, and I need to save those for some of the bigger mechanics and the raid wides and whatnot. And I can use them here and there, of course, for just like fat, chunky single target heals when needed. But yeah, that's kind of like my strategy, I guess you would say, for the Variant Advanced is to use regens to help heal from the kind of auto hits. And that's just not something I feel like I usually have to do. Obviously, if he had played a tank, that probably would have been a different experience. But that's kind of my point, is you can tailor this to be closer to the experience that you want by, having your friend, they're not playing a tank. Like my friend, he chose to play Viper. I didn't force him. He chose what he wanted to play and he played Viper. But yeah, it was this really kind of fun and unique healing experience for me because I didn't have to structure anything. I didn't have to be like, I'm going to save. I didn't have a mitigation rotation for either White Mage or Sage or anything. Like I didn't have a healing rotation. I wasn't like, I'm saving Lilybell for this, except for one mechanic in the Swordswoman. You know the one I save Lilybell for. But otherwise, like, no, I'm not saving wings for anything. Like I can use them kind of whenever I see fit. There's a lot of freedom to be had in healing this because it's forgiving enough that you don't need to have these crazy like rotations for mitigation and healing and whatnot. You don't need to have it pre-planned, but there's still these continuous autos and there's enough damage happening both to yourself, like in terms of raid wides, and to like your party members in terms of both raid wides and, like I said, the auto hits and mistakes being made and all this, that there's just so much healing to be done. Like, I honestly, part of me really thinks that Final Fantasy XIV would be a more fun game for healers if we actually had to dip into our GCD heals more often, because we almost never have to use them, right? Again, White Mage is very heavy on GCD heals because the Afflatus skills are GCD, but I think you get my point with, like, the Afflatus skills are what you're normally using, right? And I'm saying, like, imagine if you had to use stuff like Cure 3 or Medica 3, Regen, Cure 2. Like, imagine if you had to use these kinds of skills more often. I honestly think that would be better game design. The problem is that Savage is already hard enough as it is mechanically. So you can't, in my opinion, I don't know that you should really do that there, because that's going to be a lot to juggle, to have to do all of these different heals and have to worry about casted GCD heals while there's so much going on mechanically. But in something like Variant Advanced or any kind of midcore, I think that's the kind of place where you have more leeway to make it a little bit harder on healers. Same with casual, to like allow more opportunities for more healing, maybe cleansing and things. And we don't see cleansing or any really in Variant Advanced, but I did have a lot of fun healing. That's basically what I'm trying to say, is I had a lot of fun healing in that, and it felt like I got to kind of have a lot of freedom with my heals. The other thing about it too is, like, when I'm in Savage, I suck, okay? I do suck. I have Grey Parse every time, but I keep my team alive. That's all that's important. But I'm like, I try to slide cast, I'm not that great at it. I try to keep my dot up, I'm not that great at it. Like, I suck, you know what I mean? Like, I know it, it's fine. I still get the clear, thanks for the carry, I guess. But I have to still think about those things. Even though I'm not necessarily good at them, I'm definitely thinking about them. You know what I mean? Like, you have your mana management, your dot management, trying to slide cast, pre-position before mechanics so that you're not losing GCDs and uptime and all this stuff. Like, there's all that you have to worry about. Where when I'm doing Variant Advanced, it's like I can stop and heal as much as I want. I don't have to slide cast my heal. I don't have to worry about losing GCDs or things like that, because there is no enrage. And most of the mechanics are pretty forgiving, where, like I said, if you get hit once, you're not going to die, you know? So I just really like that. I just really, really, really like that, because I don't have to be, like, hardcore brained for it. Obviously, again, like, the better player you are, the faster it dies, and the less you have to do the mechanics, and the less likely you are to wipe, and blah, blah, blah. But it's just not that hard that I feel like you have to worry about that so much. It's just such a nice difficulty. It's just such a nice difficulty. It allows for me to have a really fun healing experience, and being the only healer is also really fun, because that's the thing about Variant Advanced. Of course, you can go in with 2 healers if you want to, but I wouldn't. Personally, I'm just not going to join a group that does that unless it's like we're just kind of bullshitting or whatever. But no, like, I just love that I get to have that experience. It's an experience that I really don't get to have anywhere else in the game, and I would just love to see more of it. Like, from a healer perspective, you need to go to Variant Advanced. If you think Savage is too hard, but you think the normal modes are too easy, you barely get to touch any healing buttons, especially if it's like a normal mode, like trial. I was about to call it a normal mode extreme trial. Especially if it's a normal mode trial where there's 2 healers, or normal mode raid where there's 2 healers. Oh my god, like, come to Variant Advanced by yourself. You can have a really fun healing experience. Make sure your friends don't play tanks. It'll all be fantastic. I love it. Alright, so that's pretty much all I wanted to say about Variant Advanced. Basically, I think it's really cool, and I hope they continue. I think this system works. It works better than the last system. It's a lot better than the last system, and I think that this is it. They've struck gold on here, and we can continue on with the current system that we have. Just improve the rewards for both Advanced and Criterion, especially, even more so, and we're Gucci. But I really like the system itself. I really like Variant Advanced, and I really hope we see more midcore content in Final Fantasy XIV, and I hope that, like, Square Enix and the dev team on Final Fantasy XIV gets feedback like this video to see, like, hey, this is what people like, this is what we need to make more of. So, as always, please consider leaving a sacrifice for Lord Algorithm in the form of a like, comment, share, or subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to my channel members for supporting me. Bye!